step outside.
Yate, hello everybody. Thank you so much for being with us this evening. And we'd like to get started this evening by acknowledging our traditional owners of country throughout Turtle Island and pay respect to all the elders, past and present. And we'd like to take this time to acknowledge the traditional owners and ancestors of these lands we reside on here in Santa Fe, New Mexico, the Pueblo peoples. And wherever you're beaming in from, we'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners and ancestors of the lands you are at so we can be here today. Indigenous Ways is dedicated to cultural exchange with people globally, and this platform allows us to drop our walls of separation and embrace our wholeness as five fingered ones. Uh, Thank you very much for being here with us this evening. And we would like to just let you know that we started on April 1st, 2020, so that we could stay connected during these times, challenging times. I cannot emphasize enough how challenging these times are with this global pandemic. We have lost many loved ones. Many of us have been sick, and many of us are afraid of getting sick. So we're having to separate and be apart. So this platform allows us to be together and be connected. We have supported over 70 Native American, along with LGBTQIA2, along with artists, musicians, presenters, elders, youth here at this Wisdom Circle, which is every Wednesday at this time. And every third Saturday of the month, we host a concert series. So thank you for sharing this space with us wherever you're beaming in from via Zoom or on one of our many other social platforms or watching the recording of this. Thank you very much. This evening, we're really blessed because we have a very special guest of honor. We have Albert Chase, who is Zooming in, as they said before Zoom time. They said hails from, but we're going to say Zooms from Joseph City, Arizona. And if nobody knows where Joseph City is, Albert's going to tell us all about that. So, Albert is Diné. That's our original name, but we've also been called the Navajos, and that's what people know us as. So Albert is Navajo, and I'm going to go ahead and just start by saying, yeah, Albert, for being with us this evening. Thank you very much for joining our Wisdom Circle. The first question I'm going to pose for you is, who are you? What's your childhood? Can you tell us about your beginnings and just talk to us about who you are?
Asheha, thank you for inviting me. I'm honored to be part of this network, um, Indigenous Ways. And earlier you had mentioned that the stewards of the land are the Pueblo people that you are located. And my father is part Pueblo too. And so I'd like to first acknowledge before I start the Pueblo people, our elders there, with a song, a Puebloan song. ho, 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 ho. Hey, 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 ho, hey, ho, hey, 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 ho. Hey, 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 ho, hey, ho, hey, and hey. Yeah, hey, oh, oh, hey. And
Yeah.
and with that, I'd like to honor and acknowledge our elders from the Puebloan people all over the 19 tribes of Pueblos, our brothers and sisters there. And the question that was asked to me is, who am I? And my grandparents had always told me, in this life, you try to be an extraordinary person to be, and use your gifts that are given to you. And these gifts that are given to you will be gifts to others when you share it. And so I strongly believe so that when you have a gift, you pass it on. And that was a way of our people. It was the indigenous way, is to pass it on, not to hold back. In fact, through the years, we've held back and we're suffering for it today. And so I just want to encourage everyone. The indigenous way is a very peaceful way, a loving way, and how we connect with one another. So this is me as Mr. Albert Brent Chase that you will get to know a little of this evening.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And can you tell us about your early beginnings?
Well, my early beginnings to the world that we live in, we would consider this kind of a third world situation. But for me, it was a blessing for me to be able to live in a hogan in my childhood years. As I was a little boy, I my mind developed in seeing the walls of our traditional home we call Howan Namaze. And there in that home, my mothers, my grandmothers, my matriarchs, they are called Honogahnis. That is their clans. And in the home of the Honogahnis, it gave me an opportunity to be able to sleep on a sheepskin bed and have warm sheepskin underneath me as I slept upon Mother Earth. Today we have beds. In those days, in my young days, I remember waking up and seeing the smoke hole of my hogan. And there I could see through the smoke hole Father Sky. And so it always made me feel like I was in a special and a very safe place. That was my childhood. Going outside and running among the hills that you see behind me and climbing the mountains. These were my playgrounds that you're looking at. This is the east of my hogan, my view.
Beautiful.
And this is where my playground was. I didn't have to get toys from Walmart or these fancy toys from Toys R Us. I made my own toys by gathering nice rocks out there. And then my poor chickens ran from me as I plucked them. And then I would tie feathers around the rocks and, like my great grandfather, have my own medicine bundle. And seeing
Oh,
my great grandfather cleaning his medicine bundle after coming back from a ceremony, I would sit there and help him. And so I was inspired to be able to get my own medicine bundle. That was my toy. And then I had plenty of patience. My sisters and my brothers were my patients as we played a ceremony following the footsteps of my great grandfather. And so I'm really proud to be able to have lived that life that unfortunately many of our young generations will not ever have the sentiment of. And so, in my own way, my teachings from what I have experienced when I was young I tried to recreate by building hogans at my land, hoping to get a cultural retreat for students to come and visit me. That's what I'm doing now. And that was my childhood and recreating it so that I can share it with others. So it was a beautiful childhood. It was a very peaceful childhood. I spoke Navajo, the Nebazad. It's all you see, Ajayashtikeko, Eneya, Ado and the Eya, the Nebazad, Alsashazal, Yahigi, Bahenson, Ado Edish Jigiben, Anstino, Ekut Eya, Ishtan Edesh, Anstasidan, Chiniyajan, Slidan, Tadayego, Shitlin Lati, Dish Jig, Atish Jatla, Ati Kodobe, Bebansis, Kes, in Nashilna. And so it moves me in my childhood sentiments, my childhood experience. And today is deep in my heart. And I don't think with my mind, it only remembers, but the spirit of my childhood moves me, the passion that I have to share it with those who want to learn.
Oh, Joni, yeah, that is so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, Albert. Okay, now I'm curious about your schooling. And just, yeah, where did you go to school? What did that look like for you? And how did you work that in with your tradition?
Well, when I became a school age, around 8, 9ish, um, I did what I can to hide from the school officials that were picking us up to take us to the dormitories or to the boarding schools in Delcon. And so I succeeded several times hiding on under the bundle of my beddings and the sheepskin and hiding there or running to the nearby ditches or climbing the highest hill I could and hide behind there from them because I did not want to go to school. I didn't understand what that meant. And so when I knew that there was a vehicle coming that was white and obviously a government vehicle, I made a run for it. And I got away with it several times. But after a while, my grandparents convinced me that I need to learn the English language and that the Balagana, the white man's way, must be learned for the betterment of a better life in the future for me. And so I decided to let go of running, and I decided to go in and join the rest of the children in my area and my siblings and cousins, and I went to the Delcon boarding school from kindergarten all the way to sixth grade. So that was my early and it was my elementary years. And so that's where I began to learn the English language. And the English language was very hard. It had many rules. I didn't like it. And so I had a hard time and I preferred to speak my own language. And yes, I was like some of our elders when we were told that we should not speak our language. And in order to rapidly learn the English language, we were told that we shouldn't visit or talk with one another and talk to each other in our own language because that would hinder us from learning the English language. And sometimes when we didn't listen, I remember having to bend down in the hallway of the dorms even though my muscles were ready to give out, bending down for I don't know how much time, but it seemed forever. But that was part of the punishment of speaking Navajo. So I had a little bit on the tail end of those who were told that they can't speak the language. And so it was scary at the time because as a little boy, what am I supposed to think when all of a sudden my own people are telling me you can't speak your language? You have to learn the new language. It's called English. So it was very hard for me to accept because I felt that what if I forget my language? How am I supposed to go home and talk to my grandmother that raised me,
Oh,
my
yeah.
great grandmother, my great grandfather,
Oh,
and my family? And in my little mind, I used to think, what if I can't understand them anymore? There was a real big change I felt in my life. And it was hard to let go, and it was hard to conform, and it was hard to assimilate to this new way. And I took part in that. And even today, it still affects me, as you can see, emotionally. It still affects me because now all those people that I used to communicate with in my language are gone. And now I feel like I have to move forward and not let this die. So I'm sorry to be emotional about it, but when you stand in my moccasins, you would understand.
yeah. Thank you very much for sharing that heartfelt story, Albert. It's my heart goes out to you. I myself just lost my precious, precious grandmother, Margaret Dalton. She was the matriarch of Tzilijin, Black Mountain.
Mm,
She passed away last May 8th at 98 years old. And she spent her last few years at the Winslow Care Center. So we're in mourning still because we didn't get to go to her funeral because of COVID on Black Mountain. So my heart is with you. Elders are everything. That's who we are. So my next question for you, Albert, is thank you for sharing that. I always feel like when I see a man cry, it gives me hope in mankind, humankind, because it's the cleaning out of the pain. Just let
yeah.
it out. So Jonah Jonah to me. So how do you? I noticed you said when you were a child, you were very creative on your land with the elements and making art and playing with the animals. And I remember some of that too. Are you able to incorporate some of the art into your world today? What kind of teachings did you take from your elders?
Oh yeah. I think naturally we as indigenous nations are no matter what indigenous nation you belong to, I feel that we're very creative and we recognize the simple things around us. We didn't have distractions of the fast-paced world out here that's created. And so as indigenous people, as Diné, we just already knew the beauty that surrounded us. We knew what tree was where, what rock was there, which kind of rocks could we pick. If we were to pick the crystal rocks, we knew where to go because those crystal rocks, when you put it on a stove, it turns kind of like frosty color, frosty white,
Mm-hmm.
and that became the whitener of grandma's wool work. And drop it in there and keep the wool in there, it became whiter than normal. And so we knew which color we can get from the earth or the plants or the roots to give us the certain color we need to dye our wool and what color we can get out of it. So that we've always been resourceful. You know, the black rock that you see behind me here, we went there and we would get certain kind of flint that that our people use to make arrowheads. And so these resources are just right there. Even the moon you see behind me, the different phases of that moon tell us when our ceremonies we do. Do we do our protection way ceremony? Do we do our hojanja, our blessing way ceremony? And when? It told us our teachers are just right above us, right here. And so that's what we turn to. And then the waters that flow, there's a there's a there's a water that flows behind me against those hills when it rains. And there's certain parts where the water would retain in those washes. That is where we made our water. We dug for the water. I remember
Mm.
the men would dig the wash deep enough that the water would seep up, and that was our drinking water. And that's how we did it. So when people talk about, yeah, we used to go, and that's about maybe a half a mile that way, and we would a fourth to a half a mile, we would take our buckets and our containers, and we would fill our water up and bring it back home. That was our water source back then. And we didn't have a lot of vehicles, you know, and
Mm.
so we did a lot of that. And so we learned how to be resourceful. Even the juniper trees, you know, they were our ingredients to mix blue cornmeal in, and then it would it give us certain nutrients. You know, even the juniper leaves, you know, they were our cough suppressants. So everything around us we knew would take care of us. And that's why we love the land that we come from, because it took care of us. And I know so, which is why I came home from the city life and the busy life of out there, decided to give all that up and bring it home.
That is so beautiful, Albert, and I commend you for doing that from the center of my soul, because going home to your people is the greatest service you can do. And passing on the Navajo language, what you learn, is also the greatest service you can do utilizing this platform. So thank you for doing that. And can you tell us a little bit about your professional life? You say you were in the city, you say you were in education. What did that look like?
Well, it all started when the Indian placement program started, and my grandparents, run by the Mormon people, and my grandparents felt that this would be another opportunity that could open up for me for better schooling and to take me out of the boarding school era. And they felt that this is going to be another family you have to live with and learn how to learn how to live outside the reservation, learn how to live in a town, in a city, whatever place that they're going to send you, and you're going to live with a white family and learn their way of life. And I did. You know, I listened to my elders. I didn't ever argue with them and question what they wanted for me. And so I went, although I knew that the sacrifice was going to be made of missing my grandparents, my mother, my relatives. I had to give all that up and sacrifice that to go far away. And there, learning a new way of life, a new education, new people. And so it was an experience opening up for me. And I paid close attention to how the livelihood of a white man was, how a livelihood and workmanship of a white man was, and how my family, how they were able to survive out there in the white world. And so I stayed out there from seventh grade all the way to 12th grade and graduated from Uinta High, which is in Vernal, Utah. And from there, I went right straight into a summer session at BYU. And a little boy, res boy, left his home. And then after graduating from high school, going right into a big university,
Wow.
BYU, Brigham Young University, it was overwhelming. But I was a go-getter because my grandmother and my grandfather always telling me, be an extraordinary person, try things, don't be afraid to. So I joined the university there, and as I did, I joined what they call Lamanite Generation. It's a performing group of Native Americans,
Mm-hmm.
Latin Americans,
Mm-hmm.
Polynesian people, the indigenous nation. And so I learned many of the cultures of the Mexican people as well as the Polynesian people, the indigenous people from there, and of course my people. And there I got more introduced to the
Oh,
intertribal
okay.
activities like powwow dancing and other stuff. And so they're going to school and being part of a special group that kind of focused on indigenous song and dance and talent, and then having a trip to the Caribbean islands,
Oh.
to the South American tours. I was able to travel through a culture that I love, and so I shared a lot of my Navajo traditions through that too, incorporated that into the performing group.
Oh, wow.
And so that was my college life. And after a while, I guess the burden and just the pressures of going to school, keeping grades up, and being in a performing group and being away for a long time, somewhere along the way, I began to miss my family. My mother and grandmother would call me, and I could hear their sorrows after losing my grandpa and my stepdad. And I felt that there was a strong need. So I tried to let that flow. But
Mm.
after a few years of just kind of getting out of BYU and alleviate that pressure first and take a break from that to working just maybe a couple more years, I couldn't do it anymore. And
Oh.
so I decided I think I need to go home. My matriarchs are calling me. They raised me and I love them, and I've been away from home since seventh grade into high school and into college, and then
Mm.
some more work time. So that was a lot.
Yeah.
And so I realized I think I need to go home because I can hear my grandma. I can hear
Oh.
my mother. And so I decided to it was the toughest decision to make, to have to give up a life that I was really pressing forward for. And yeah, I could have probably finished my doctorate's degree in whatever
Mm.
and lived on the Wasatch Front over there in a big house, like some of the my my people my age did. Some became very successful and live in a home, a big home in a fancy place in a beautiful
Mm.
area. I gave all that up and I decided I'm going to go back to my loved ones. And so I did. And I was afraid because my foster parents would say, "What would you do if you can't find a job? Because there's so much uh, less there, and the opportunities were here, and you were doing good, you know."
Mm.
But I said, I need to go home. So I just dropped everything, loaded up everything, and I drove home. And about halfway my trip, I probably cried because I didn't want to give that up, the opportunity.
Right.
But little did I know that my opportunity was just opening up.
Ah.
When I came home, I felt the sadness of all that race and the racy, the fast-paced world that I was in.
Mm.
I slowed down. I allowed myself to heal by being part of my land, being with my grandma and my family, re-speaking my language and beginning to get back into my culture, the Diné.
Beautiful.
And so that that's where I'm at. And so from there, my life changed. I never had to apply for a job. The schools just pretty much started knowing what I do, and I began to get invited to do things and
Oh,
performances,
yes.
and just started teaching the language. And I began to become more and more proficient with my language speaking again. And then I went to school to learn how to spell and read Navajo because
Oh,
I didn't know that. And so now I do, and now this learned knowledge, I'm passing that forward to the young ones. The young ones, they got two pluses. They get to read and they get to write it, and at the same time, learning how to speak it and understand it. So
um,
they have nothing to lose, nothing to lose.
wow. Wow. That is so awesome, Albert. That's so beautiful. It sounds like a full circle. It looks like a full circle, you coming back. And you know, what's really special about you is you're so fluent in Navajo as your first language that you are special to those schools, those administrators. They know how special it is to have you with them teaching on the land for the people, the young ones, to learn it. So, the next question I have for you, Albert, since we're going to invite the audience in just a few minutes, but I want to ask you, what does traditional mean to you today with everything you've been through, with all this Wi Fi, Zoom? How do you maintain the traditional?
Well, I think that's a special word. And I think that's a word that has its own life form and its own dynamics. And how you fit yourself in that word traditional is what you put into it. Like our ancestors, you know, they were traditional in their own right and what they practiced, what their spirituality was in it, how they moved with it, and how they gained their balance and peace through the tradition that their time that they were happy with. And then as we evolve and we begin to, you know, Navajo people, if any tribe, is very adaptive. We're a
Ooh,
very adaptive tribe. And so we had to roll with the new times. And sometimes we do get criticized that Navajos take over this, Navajos take over that. That's the culture that they're not from, and blah, 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 blah. You know what? I see it as an influence in my life that's enriched my life. I don't feel that I'm taking any tradition away from anybody. If anything, the traditions were given to us by something greater we call the yin, Diné, the
mm,
holy people. The holy people are the ones that taught us how to practice our tradition, and they are the ones that instructed our people, every indigenous nation, how to sing their songs, instructed how to do their ceremonies, instructed them how to dress and define who they are. Like,
beautiful.
I have this on me. Yeah, someone out from the world's going to say, "Oh, that's a beautiful necklace. I know that's a squash blossom necklace."
Right.
Yes, it is. And do you know what this means? This is something very sacred to me, not just to look nice on camera or for anybody, but I wear this in a lot because you know why? When I when I planted my garden, it was successful. I had a lot of corn. I had a lot of squash. And those squash, I embraced those squash and I brought it to my family. I brought it to my people. I brought it to my own home and I embraced it.
Ooh,
That's
yes.
why this symbol is right here. Najja. People like to talk about Najja, but do they really know what it means? This
Mm,
means that we are embracing our harvest. And this
wow.
here are all the beautiful flowers that make the fruit appear. And if you didn't have a blossom on your garden, that means there was going to be no harvest of any squash. But when that blossom happens, you know that there's going to be a squash growing
Oh,
out. And that's why I wear it, because it's a symbol of a successful harvest for me and that my prayers were answered.
yes. That is so beautiful, Albert. So before we invite the audience, and I'm just going to ask you, is there something you want to add for us to know and understanding about your movement with your Navajo teaching and how you embrace that like a good harvest, and how you're going to spread out the seeds through the internet, through the Zoom platforms, and how you're going to do it traditional in the schools, and what is that like? Do you want to leave us with a little bit more of how we can access this from you? How can we get this resource? Because I want some of that.
Well, I like the question and I catch the word, how are you going to move? And I have always been told by my elders that if you don't move, nothing's going to happen. And I'm moving forward, even though from the depths of surviving the COVID uh, sickness, I realize there's a greater purpose for me to be here and that I need to move and thrust forward because I want to be part of the team of preserving our culture and our language, to save that for our children and give it to them. And so that's what moves me here today. And so with this new era of COVID-19 and being contained over in our homes, we can sit there and complain, and we can sit in sorrow, and we can sit in grief and let that overtake us and break our hearts, or we can stand up and move forward and become creative of how are we going to obtain blessings that we are reaping and move that forward and share that forward. And so what I did is I made my own Zoom account. I paid for all the things that they need. I got my own Zoom account called the Net Language. And so I created flyers. I started promoting myself in the Facebook, and also I have a YouTube of things that I share with culture and language. So pollen trail, Navajo pollen trail. All you have to do is search that. You get my YouTube. So that's a good place to also look. And so I've done everything that I can to promote, not myself, but promote my language, to promote my culture that comes within here. Yes, we can always think here and we can always show our intellect, but if we don't think from here, then we miss out on something. That's
Yep.
the spirit in what we do, and the spirit of what we use, the spirit of our language, our song, our symbols. It's not sacrilegious. Some people sometimes will say that, but it's not. We can keep criticizing each other and keep bringing each other down and critiquing each other, putting each other down till we have no language left to talk. And
Yeah.
I am not there.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you. That is beautiful. I'm so glad you said that. So, with that, I'm going to thank you for sharing your heart with us, because I feel like that's what we got. We got your heart. And thank you for carrying on the culture and the tradition and the language for our people and all others involved, in laws and so forth. And everybody, you can see how to contact Albert right below me, NavajoPollenTrail.com. On Facebook, you can find Albert at albert.chase.73. And I want to talk about our presenters. We have some wonderful presenters for the month of February. As everybody knows, next month is Black History Month. And next week, we're going to be supporting and honoring and showcasing Nina J., who is an amazing poet. And she is going to come on next week at 6 o'clock, hailing in from Chicago, Illinois. And following that, we have Eve Wiggins, and she is our deaf presenter for the month. And she is also Black, and she is just an amazing human being. Following that, we have a very special guest, Taz Tamupovi. She's San Ildefonso Pueblo and Black, and she lives on San Ildefonso Pueblo, where she raises her daughter. And then we have a very special guest on our performance of the month, Gina Breedlove, hailing in from the Bay Area, and she is like a healer with her voice. So she's going to sing and talk to us on Saturday. And finally, we were so impressed with Dr. Zalima Harris that we said, we got to have you back. And she said, you got it. I said, can you talk to us about a little bit about Black history? So she said, yes. So we're really excited about that. So next, we're going to just make sure that you all come in for Nina J next Wednesday. And for more information, you can always go to our IndigenousWays.org right above me. That's very user-friendly website that is well put together. Very happy for that. And we also have our Wisdom Circle and concert series presenters and video archives. And we'd love for you to share this recorded video with everyone, which will be available in the next 48 hours on our website. There you will also find over 70 Indigenous presenters, and you can subscribe to our weekly newsletter, IndigenousWays.org, everybody. Check it out. Believe me, it's really exciting, the website. Below me is all our social media page sites, so please like and subscribe to them. And as always, our virtual events is raising the bar for inclusion. So we have ASL interpreters at all our events so that everybody can be a part of this. And these events are all free, so please continue to support us. And we would not be doing this without our sponsors. So we'd like to thank the Native American Advised Fund, Santa Fe Community Foundation, West Staff, and New Mexico Arts. And as always, we want to give a heartfelt thanks to our board members that take this nonprofit very seriously with all the planning and the elders and the advisors. Thank you. We love you. So now I'm going to go ahead and let you know that we have a donation page. There's a way to support us for all of our various entities and movements. You can go to PayPal. You can send us a check in the mail. You can go to our website and just click on donate. Everything's really user friendly. We have next week, we're going to be going back to the Navajo Nation to be dropping off some PPE equipment along with some food and some necessities. So please keep posted in that. And then we're going to invite everybody to come on in at this time. Share your video so we can see who you are. And we also want to thank all of our chat people that are on our social media sites. Twyla P. in from Oklahoma, thank you very much. She says, thank you from Oklahoma tonight. And Angelina Owillo, thank you very much, beaming in from Seattle, Washington. K.G. Key from Farmington Shiprock area. Darlene Lee. All right. Darlene Lee, our Shiprock girl. Hee-haw. Darlene, thank you for coming in this evening. All right, everybody. Thank you for being here. I'm going to just say, let's say hi to Andrea Otero.
Hello, everybody.
AIA.
Hi, thank you so much for this. Albert, what a wonderful way to end a long day. I love being able to see all these special people, and it really enriches my evening. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrea. And let's go on down the list. Kitty Moss, would you like to say something? Woo, can you unmute? Oh, still can't hear you. Huh. There we go.
I just want to say thank you, Albert, so much. I know a lot of your story is filled with a lot of struggle and sadness, but listening to it it just warms the heart and where you've come to. Thank you. I'm very grateful to have been able to listen to that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kitty. And let's go right then next to Dusty. Would you like to say something?
Thank you so deeply, more than words can say. And I extend that to Tasha and Elena and everybody whose name I don't know who helps to make these things happen. And I really mean that. And I also really mean it to Albert. Your heart made me cry in a good way. And the courage of your tears, I'm so moved by it when people frequently will say, "Oh, I'm sorry," when they cry in public. And I can be very loud when I want to be. I'm a singer. So I'm usually loud enough to be heard to say to that person, "It's okay to cry. Thank you for the courage of your tears." There's wisdom in all that, and such depth and heart, and so much wisdom you have shared with all of us. Thank you for all that you've done, all you've been through. Thank you to your ancestors. And thank you for all you're doing and all that you will be doing, from my heart to yours.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dusty. And let's move next over to Michelle Redman, also known as Missy.
Hello, Albert, it's good to hear you.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed your story and your I appreciate your struggle in returning back to the reservation, you know, because I'm from the res too. I'm Diné. Twitch eatni and shle, belagana bushes chin, touch eatni dashache, belagana dashanale. That means I'm from the Bitterwater clan, born for the white man. And my paternal clan is red that runs into the water, and my Nelly on my paternal side is Belagana white. So anyway, I remember when I left the reservation, I was really homesick too, and I had completed through high school, living in Saline, Arizona, and you know, so it was a wonderful place to grow up. And my family's from the Black Mesa, Katsili area, and my grandma was a huge influence on my life. And I ended up later on, after I went through my first year of college at Fort Lewis, I went to San Diego, and later on got into the legal profession. But I remember when I first got there, I was really homesick. And luckily I had an auntie there that was she was Diné, and she lived in San Diego, and she had her kids and grandkids there. So I had her close by, so I at least had that family connection. And the first time I came back was for the holidays. And I remember coming into Gallup and seeing all those brown faces, you know, coming out of the hall, and my heart just soared. I just felt so happy to be back home. And you know, I live in outside of Santa Fe right now, Santa Fe, New Mexico, and there's a little bit of an echo. But anyway, it's like every time I go back to the reservation, I always feel very, very glad to be home. And that really is truly where my heart is. And I always come back to that. So I'm really happy to hear your story. And I'm really happy to hear about your website and you teaching Navajo. So my question, like years ago, I took a Navajo class, and it was a college class offered at the Institute of American Indian Arts called Conversational Navajo. And, you know, I can speak Navajo enough to get by on the res, but I don't know it fluently, far from fluently, actually. But, you know, I know enough that I can kind of understand what's being said for the most part. And then when I speak back, I can usually get my message across. But when I took the conversational Navajo, I realized that I didn't really understand I didn't have a really good understanding of the structure, which was like, you know, the verb tenses and all that kind of stuff, and how there were like, you know, 7 verb tenses instead of, you know, like 5 in the English language, and or 4. And so it was kind of interesting to find that out. And then just all the different ways that you can say things depending on how you're using that verb tense. And so it was a great class. I learned a lot just in that one semester. but I would love to entertain your class too, if that's open to the public. So is that open for someone like me to go to your class? And
I'll send you his phone number.
okay.
Alkosh. Albert, is that
Oh,
okay?
Yes, yes,
oh,
definitely.
Jean. Oh, yeah.
Oh, um,
Yeah. Great.
maybe before we get off, an alert. How about that? It's an emergency alert. You know, they have everything like that nowadays. But I think if we got maybe one more comment, and then I'd like to share a special song and sign language to send you off with that. Ashiko.
Oh, Akko. Michelle, would you like to say something real quick?
Oh, hello. This is, I wanted to thank you for all the feeling that you put into your presentation. And it reminded me of, what Susie Orman says, do what you love and the money will come. When you talked about looking at all those peers that have the very expensive houses up on the hill, and you could have had that, but you made that really, really difficult decision to go back to mom, to go back to grandma, and they were the jewels in your life that are so invaluable. Because I had a mom and a grandma like that, that I didn't go away to college. I stayed at home during college, and I felt that I couldn't have gotten a better education at Harvard or Yale than I did at Golden West College and Cal State Fullerton, living at home and being around mom and grandma and Auntie Virgie and that whole thing. So thank you for your story.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you very much, Michelle. And all of you on social media, thank you very much. Your chat on, I'll share that with Albert after the show. Albert does need to get to another class. He's teaching here in about 5 minutes. So he's going to end with a song for us in Indigenous Sign Language. So go for it, Albert.
And I'm just hoping that this will encourage all of you to continue that education doesn't just lie in the colleges that we go. Education is just right here upon Mother Earth and under Father Sky. And so I'd like to share this with you. Let me try it again because, technology.
Long ago, an Indian war chief counseled his people in the ways that they should walk. He wisely told them, education is the ladder to success and happiness. Go, my son, go and climb that ladder. Go, my son, go and climb the ladder. Go, my son, go and earn your feather. Go, my son, make your people proud of you. Work, my son, get an education. Work, my son, learn a good vocation and climb, my son. Go and take a lofty view. From on the ladder of an education, you can see to help your Indian nation and reach, my son, and lift your people up with you. Ooh. your people proud of you. Work, my son, get an education. Work, my son, learn a good vocation and climb, my son. Go and take a lofty view. From on the ladder of an education, you can see to help your Indian nation and reach, my son. Lift your people up with you.
Wow. Oh, wow. That just made me cry. And that made me cry good tears. Thank you very much. And for those of you on Facebook, if the interpretation didn't come through, we apologize. We hope it did come through, but this was very touching. I want to learn some of that Indian Sign Language. We want to thank our beautiful interpreters this evening for making the access available. We want to say hello to our beautiful Navajo deaf sister, Arletta from Lukachukai. That's L-U-K, Arletta. She's in Lukachukai. And she taught me sign language a long time ago, huh, Arletta? You taught me sign language. Thank you. Thank you, all of our participants tonight. And let's give it up for all of our participants on social media. Thank you very much. And let's give it up for Albert, everybody. Thank you, Albert.
Touch the earth.